Today I'm going to talk about Aotearoa's rare and poorly known lizards. Obviously my name is Carey Knox and I'm working as a herpetologist, but that basically means a lizard specialist. So basically I love lizards, so I can call myself a herpetologist. Next slide. Oops, too many. So I'm going to cover four main topics. So firstly, I'm going to introduce our reptiles. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the threats to our reptiles and their conservation status. Thirdly, I'm going to go into some detail on some recent discoveries, new species that have been discovered in the last few years. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about conservation and habitat restoration for our lizards. So, Aotearoa's reptiles. Everyone has heard of the tuatara, which isn't actually a lizard. It belongs to its own group. And we also have many species of lizard. Lizard covers both skinks and geckos. So skinks are generally sort of slender and snake-like with little legs, tight skin, small eyes. Geckos are sort of more bulky with baggy skin, larger eyes, and they can't blink, so they use their tongues to clean their eyes. So I like to tell people that geckos and skinks are like cats and dogs. They're sort of completely different, although they're both lizards. So the New Zealand lizard fauna. The number of recognised taxa, and taxa just sort of covers species both described and undescribed. So yeah, they're all kind of unique things. So in 2015, there were 104 recognised lizard taxa in New Zealand when they did the threat rankings. In 2020, that's increased to 124. So in 5 years, it's increased by 20 lizard taxa. And that's for two reasons. We're still finding new species, and we're also still sort of unraveling their taxonomy, their genetic relationships, and so on. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot happening, and we're still finding new things. All of our lizards except for one species are endemic to New Zealand, so only found in New Zealand. There's one introduced skink from Australia that's sort of mostly in the North Island. So it's this is a really high diversity of lizards for a temperate country. And all except one of our lizards have live young. So most lizards around the world lay eggs, but most of ours have live birth, except for one skink up in the North Island. And our lizards are incredibly long-lived. So we know that some of our geckos live till at least 50 years. We don't actually know the upper limit yet. So we haven't sort of been tracking individuals long enough. So it could be a lot more than 50 for all we know. And we know that our skinks can live to at least 25. So now I'm just going to go through our geckos and our skinks, and I've kind of put them in little groups to help you understand them a bit better. So I've got sort of four groups for the geckos. So we have the green geckos, which are in the genus Nautinus, and there's 9 species of these. They're really gorgeous green geckos with vibrant yellow and green and white sort of diamond patterns on them. So yeah, they're pretty cool, and they're active during the day, and they live in small shrubs and trees like Carnica, Manuka, Matagauri, that sort of thing. They like the dense, small-leafed shrubs, and they're arboreal. So they spend very little time on the ground. They sort of hang about in the shrubs and trees. Next, we have I've called them the rock geckos. And this is the genus Woodworthia. There's 16 species of these. These are probably the most commonly seen geckos around the country. And a lot of them like to live in rocky places. And they're nocturnal generally, so they sort of come out and forage at night time for invertebrates and so on. So there's 16 of those. And then we have the forest or alpine specialist geckos, which are in the genus Mocopiridacu, and there's about 12 of those. And they're really cool. Some of them have bright orange patterns, and they can live in sort of mature forest and shrubland, and then there's some that live way up in the alpine zone in boulder fields, and we'll talk a bit more about one of those later on. Then we have some other groups of geckos, which I won't go into too much detail, but we've got these other genus here, including Duversel's gecko, which is New Zealand's largest gecko, the striped geckos, and the harlequin gecko, which is pretty famous down on Stewart Island, and there's a photo of a harlequin there, quite camouflaged in some tangle fern. The skinks, there's 76 recognised taxa at the moment. Quite a high diversity. They're all in the one genus at this stage. So this slide shows some of the smaller skinks that we have that are quite common around the country, like McCann's skink in the top left, copper skink, bottom left, and a few others. And then we have some of our larger skinks on this slide, like Otago skink, which grows to about 30 centimetres in length. So it's quite a big one, and a few of the other bigger skinks. The bigger ones are sort of less often seen by the public because they're a lot rarer generally. Because they're larger, they're more vulnerable to predators. So that leads nicely into threats and status. So what are the threats to our lizards? Obviously, predation by introduced mammals is a big one. And for lizards, it's a bit different than birds. So we know that mice are a major predator, and they're a very difficult thing to control, obviously. And hedgehogs, I like to call them rats with spikes. And then we have the stoats, the cats, and everything else, really. Habitat loss is obviously a threat. So, livestock can graze out their habitat. A lot of lizards depend on dense ground cover. Fires, burning of tussock and shrubland vegetation, obviously development of any of their habitats. Illegal collection or poaching is pretty small, really. I mean, it's had a lot of media attention, but it's been blowing up a little bit, as the media tends to do. But in saying that, I think one lizard taken from the wild is one too many. I like to see all our lizards in the wild wherever possible, rather than in people's houses or whatever. So, it's illegal to remove a New Zealand lizard from the wild. And climate change is a sort of increasing threat, potentially resulting in sort of ecosystems collapsing. So obviously that's going to be bad for our lizards. So obviously we need to do work in that area. So this is just to illustrate one threat. This is that not many people probably were aware of, but there was a big fire down in Otago a couple of years ago in the Lammermoor range, and there was about 4,500 hectares of habitat lost, which is massive. And thousands, if not millions, of lizards would have perished in that fire. But we don't really hear about this. And this includes probably several thousand of these beautiful jewel gecko. Some of them survived the fire, like this lucky guy here, but he doesn't really have very good habitat left to keep living in. The habitat slowly recovers, but you know, the populations take a big hit from these fires. So fire's a big risk that we need to keep on top of. And in the media, you hear about loss of property and so on, but you don't really hear about the lizards and invertebrates that get cooked. So our threat classification system, a lot of you will be pretty familiar with this. So all of our species get ranked from not threatened all the way to nationally critical and extinct and so on. So the closer to the top you are, the more of this little graph, the more trouble you're in. So every 5 years, an expert panel reviews this for New Zealand's reptiles. And I was lucky enough to be on the last panel. And just to sort of give each species a conservation status. So for our lizards, we have 52 out of 124 that are considered threatened or data deficient. Data deficient, we just have no idea how rare they are, so that's not really a good place to be, because some of those data deficient ones will be highly, highly endangered. And 10 nationally critical. So there's 14 there and on the edge of the cliff pretty much, in big, big trouble. And then we have 16 and nationally endangered, so faring slightly better, but definitely not out of the woods. So yeah, there's a lot of threatened lizards in New Zealand, and a lot of work to be done. And obviously we're still finding new species in remote alpine areas in particular. You know, geckos go up to 2,200 metres in some places, and skinks to at least 1,900 metres. So way up above the tree line in the mountains. So some of them have kind of survived in these pockets in the mountains here and there. But really, the South Island has a huge number of mountains, and a lot of them, the majority of them, haven't been properly explored for lizards. So there's still heaps to do, and that's why we're still finding new things. So now the third topic, some recent discoveries. I'll run through these three species. So the Hudatiao gecko, Awako skink, and Matau range skink. So the Hudatiao gecko, Mycoperacu galaxius, my personal favourite. I was lucky enough to be on the field trip when it was discovered, so that was pretty awesome. So they're threatened, nationally endangered at this stage. So this was a new species discovered in 2018 and described in 2021. At this stage, it's only known from 2 mountain ranges in North Otago. Possibly occurs a bit, you know, further spread, but we're still kind of figuring out where it is and where it isn't, because it's nocturnal, so lives way up in the mountains, but is only detectable at night time, really. Incredibly cryptic and hard to detect. So you've got to spend a lot of time shining your torch around in the middle of the night on the top of a mountain to try and find one. So over 3 summers, we managed to find 29 individuals across 6 sites. 6 sites is a real positive. But to find those 29 individuals was a heck of a lot of effort. Some nights we got nothing. You know, other nights 1 or 2. So yeah, it can be hard work, but it's always really exciting when you find stuff. So this is just some photos of this awesome gecko, and the scientific name Galaxius was chosen based on the galaxy-like patterns on the back. So when we actually found the gecko, we were looking up at the night sky, and there was stars everywhere, and you know, it looked just like the patterns on the back of the gecko. So Galaxius kind of came to mind straight away as a cool species name. So this is just a quick picture which shows where Galaxius is located, sort of within that yellow circle, and then its 2 closest relatives, the forest gecko, which some of you will be familiar with, Mocopyriracu granulatus, and the black-eyed gecko, the only other New Zealand gecko that has sort of dark eyes. And you can see there's quite a geographic gap there. So yeah, when we found it, we were very surprised, and we were pretty sure we had a new species straight away. Oh, one too far. Right. The next species, Awakopeka skink. This is currently considered threatened nationally critical, so possibly in trouble. So this was first discovered in 2014. At this stage, there's only one known population, which is only about 2 hectares where we've found them, in the Darren Mountains of Fiordland. The second individual wasn't found until 5 years after the first one. So people had gone back trying to find more, but had been unsuccessful in that 5-year period, and then including some of New Zealand's top experts. But then I was lucky enough to go up there and fluke that second individual. And then luckily, with that second individual being found, it kind of helped us get some funding for some more dedicated work. And we tried some, because we knew they were a very cryptic thing. So we were trying different ways of detecting them at this site. You know, when you find a new species, you've got to figure out the best way of finding more of them, especially with lizards. They don't flutter around in your face like birds. They're a bit more difficult to find. So there's the second Awakopeka skink ever found, which was only 200 metres away from the first one. So yeah, that was an exciting moment, and got a cool photo to remember it by. That's kind of some of the habitat that they live in. So yeah, steep, rocky, kind of dangerous to walk around in. But yeah, pretty awesome scenery and stuff. And so this is a close-up of some of the habitat where they're found. So they kind of hang out in this loose rock on the edges of screes where there's shrubs and tussocks mixed in with the rock. So with these skinks, the catch per unit effort has been really low. So far we've done 6 days of intensive survey with, several people at this known population, and we've managed to find 12 skinks. We've found pregnant females, so that's always good, and juveniles. So there's some sort of population there. But then we've sort of also wanted to search further afield to see if we can find some more populations as part of, assessing how threatened they are. So we looked at sort of Google Earth imagery, and within a 15-kilometre radius of the one known site, and sort of tried to pick out other areas to go and have a look. But so far we've surveyed 5 of these areas with the same kind of habitat, and unfortunately haven't found them. And we've also sort of flown over sites in the helicopter and assessed them from the air. So we've kind of got more sites that we're going to go back and look at. So we haven't found any yet, unfortunately, aside from this 2-hectare area, but, we're still working on it. So hopefully I'll have some good news in a year's time. And based on these surveys, we moved them from data deficient to nationally critical. So we get to go some pretty beautiful places, which are awesome. Kia and rock wren everywhere. But it's still hard work. You got to spend, 10 or 12 hours a day looking for things that are blooming hard to find. But can't complain, really. So you see the challenges that Fiordland creates, like these just ridiculously steep mountains, most of it inaccessible unless you got climbing ropes and so on. So trying to find cryptic lizards in that terrain, super difficult. So this is just us doing the helicopter fly around. And some of the habitats we were looking at from the air, so we're looking for these kind of bouldery areas where all the rocks fall down from the mountains and accumulate in piles, and they're mixed in with some native vegetation and so on. So we flew around some of these sites and kind of we ranked them all in terms of our priority list for which ones we wanted to survey. So that was fun. So in conclusion with these guys, given some of their potential habitat is so steep and difficult to survey, they could still be widespread, but we just can't figure it out really at this stage. So, you got to assume worst case scenario just in case they're on the brink. So that's why they're nationally critical. But there's a chance that they'll once we figure out how to find more of these things, that they'll turn out to be a bit more widespread. So hopefully there's some more populations out there clinging to a mountainside somewhere. So we're going to keep searching some new areas this summer. I should be going back in a couple of weeks with a bit of luck. We also need to look at how we're going to protect that one known site. So that's a priority too, just in case it is the only site. And by the end of sort of next summer, we hope to provide some sort of good suggestions for monitoring and management of these skinks. So they're definitely one we're working on. Right, the last case study is the Matilda range skink. So I've called this the skink that spent 4 years in a freezer before being discovered. And you'll see what that means soon. So this is a super recent one. So I was in the Matilda range in 2016 undertaking fieldwork on another skink species. And I found that there were 6 skink species all coexisting in the habitat on the ridgeline there. And they're all these little brown things running around with slightly different patterns on them. It can take a little while to figure out what's what you're looking at. But one of them took my interest, so I grabbed it and I identified it as an ear skink because it looks basically like an ear skink. And the ear skink was known from only 40 kilometres to the west. So I assumed it was an ear skink. But I was just interested enough to take a genetic sample just in case, because I thought, it's outside of the ear skink known range. Maybe, it's worth checking. So we got the genetic sample. But I didn't really think it was a high priority for testing because I thought it would just come back as ear skink. So the tail tip spent 4 years in my freezer in a little vial of ethanol. But last winter, Doc had some funding for genetic testing. And they asked us lizard experts if we had any samples. So I sort of thought, I may as well throw it in with the batch. Yeah, and then to my enormous surprise, the tail that spent 4 years in my freezer was tested and I got such a shock. It came out as a clear-cut new species, previously unknown to science. So this Matilda range skink has moved from the darkness into the light and become known to a small bunch of lizard nerds. And hopefully a few more people after this talk, I suppose. So this is a skink here, and if you know ear skink, it looks very similar. So what we know so far, so we know it's related to ear skink, but it's over 6% divergent from it, which is definitely enough to be a new species. We think it probably has a similar ecology, but, we don't really know we know very little at this stage. And we've only got a handful of observations and photographs to go from. So, but what are we going to do? We've got plans. So we want to go and get more photographs and measurements to compare it to, its relatives more thoroughly. We really want to think of a better name. So we're going to consult with iwi and some other people on a name. We want to scientifically describe them, do a proper survey to understand their abundance, distribution, ecology, and potential threats. and see if they need sort of any conservation management. So just all the typical things you kind of work through when you find a new species. Cool. So we're on to the last topic. So maybe the most important one, conservation and habitat restoration. So, you know, all these are good things: improving knowledge of rare lizards, managing the threatened species, protecting and expanding habitats. The fenced sanctuaries are good for lizards, pest control and habitat restoration. But there's a lot of difficulties with lizards. We can't translocate them all to predator-free offshore islands or into sanctuaries. We have these specialist alpine species. We have species that are only known from Otago, where there's no offshore islands. You know, habitat specialists, we can't, you know, those habitats don't exist in sanctuaries necessarily, or offshore islands. We can't take a skink from Otago and put it on an offshore island, you know, somewhere off Auckland or whatever. That wouldn't be appropriate. Some other difficulties, you know, some of our lizards are incredibly cryptic, or their habitats are virtually inaccessible. So it's real difficult and time consuming to figure out how rare they actually are. What's their true rarity? And you can't really just throw money at it. Obviously money helps, but, you know, there's a lot more to it. You need good personnel, good plans, and a bit of time to figure things out sometimes. So another difficulty with lizards, mice are a big predator, possibly the biggest. And we, in some cases, but, you know, we've got no decent way of controlling them on a large scale. You know, especially, you know, if you're talking about steep, subalpine and alpine areas. Hedgehogs are a big threat as well, especially for skinks. They hoover up anything on the ground. Possibly with climate change, you know, we're getting more and more mammals in the alpine areas. So coming into contact with these lizards, these rarer ones. So there's probably more abundance and more diversity of mammals going up into the mountains. You know, and very little of our pest control around the country is actually focused on lizards. It's all, you know, a lot of it's just focused on birds. So, you know, whether that actually helps lizards or not, you know, is sort of 50-50 in some cases. So, yeah, the lizards have different ecology and behavior and different predators to birds sometimes. So some people might say, why don't you put some of these rare ones in captivity? Sometimes that works okay, but it's usually a last ditch or edge of the cliff kind of option. And that has been done with a couple of things like cobble skink, which habitat on the west coast of the South Island was being washed out to sea through sea level rise and tsunamis and so on. But I think it's a really sad day when a species becomes extinct in the wild and it only exists in captivity. And also a lot of our lizards don't actually survive or breed very well in captivity. And some do quite poorly actually, so it's not a good option. But, you know, it's another tool that can be useful for some species. Yeah, and basically because of all of this, for some of our threatened lizard species, we don't really know how to really manage them at this stage. But, you know, we're working on all these sort of questions and learning more as time goes on. So now the positives, like what can we do? Firstly, you know, if you're going tramping in the mountains and you find lizards, especially alpine lizards, we're quite interested in those sightings. So there's a link there where you can report sightings. You know, you can enhance lizard habitat in your backyard, your local reserve or sanctuary. Pest control is good, but it needs to be balanced in multi-species. I say get a guinea pig, not a cat. You know, if your kids want a pet. They're just as cute, but they don't kill things. So imagine in New Zealand where everyone swapped their pet cats for guinea pigs. We'll probably have a lot more lizards in our towns and cities. I've probably gone too long, but we're nearly there. So habitat restoration, provide rocky retreats or woody retreats. Rock piles need to be big and deep, so skinks can escape poor weather and overwinter. You want nearby habitat so lizards can colonize, ideally. You want good sunlight, or sort of some shady areas, some sun. And you can, around rock or wood piles, you can put, plant tussocks, native shrubs, and they like the small leaf dense shrubs which attract invertebrates and have berries, so coprosmas and things like that. And a lot of our skinks like long grass, so maybe you can leave some long grass on your section somewhere if you've got lizards around. So there's some recommended plants that they really like. Those small leaf shrubs. Basically go for dense, low growing, good shelter, small leaves, invertebrates and fruit. Right, that's it. So I'd just like to thank all these people and organisations that have been a massive help, and anyone else I've sort of forgotten. It's a lot of this work's a massive team effort. Thanks for listening.
Well done. Fantastic,
Thanks.
Carey. That was, and don't the pictures, aren't they photogenic creatures?
Yeah, yep. No, I probably got a little bit better at photos over the years and just sort of recognised it as a way of, really getting people to actually see these rare things. And just for advocacy and education, that the photos have been really important. So that's kind of pushed me to get better and better pictures.
I was down in Alexandra not too long ago, and there was a school down there that had set up a lizard habitat. Are more schools, etc., doing that? Are you noticing people are focusing their kids on them?
Yeah, yep. No, that's I haven't noticed it heaps, but I've heard of a few schools doing it, and I definitely support that idea. I guess you've got to be a little bit careful with kids that they don't interfere with the lizards too much, but I'm sure you can manage that, and it's good to encourage them to get involved. It can be a really good sort of educational opportunity, getting them to create a lizard garden, and then hopefully one day some skinks or something will move in. And there's still some fairly common species around some of our cities, like the grass skinks, and in Central Otago the macan skink is still incredibly abundant. So those ones are great to get for people to see. Where I live in Ranfurly, there's two skink species that are on the side of the rail trail right through the town. So yep.
There's a few questions. I'm going to fire them at you. Rapid fire question time. Haley just says, is it a bad idea to create lizard habitats in your backyard when there are cats around?
I wouldn't think it's necessarily a bad idea, because the cats won't necessarily eliminate all the lizards. And if there's no habitat, there's going to be, the lizards don't have a chance anyway, do they? So, cats are a tricky one, but if you provide really good cover for the lizards, it'll give them a fighting chance. So, if you have those rock piles and those wood piles, there's things you can do to kind of give the lizards a shot against the cats. So maybe they'll lose a few tails and a few will get eaten, but there'll be enough that survive to kind of, so that there's some sort of population sort of in the area. One thing that I've experimented with and could be useful is using chicken netting. It might not look all that attractive, but you can put chicken wire over rock piles. So the cats can't actually grab the blooming skinks. Yeah. So if you set it sort of 10 centimetres, 15 centimetres above the rock pile somehow and have these sort of bits of chicken wire over, even just in a couple of spots where they like to bask, doesn't have to be covering your entire section, depending on how carried away you get. But if they've got a couple of favourite basking spots, you could put a little bit of chicken wire around it, just like how you protect your strawberries or something from birds.
Yeah, like your own baby Zealandia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I encourage people to do it. Really, give it a go. Yeah,
it's a great idea, as Hayley has said, which is cool. Riley asks, how old were you when you became interested in the lizards, and when did you decide to become a herpetologist?
Well, I actually, so I grew up in Fairlie in the Mackenzie country, like a small town, but I always loved like running around in the hills and mountains and exploring and stuff. And I remember finding, skinks and a few brown geckos when I was a kid, but I was kind of just interested in everything. Like I'd collect grasshoppers and, I'd take home spiders and beetles and stuff, and which I'm sure my family loved, but yeah. I was just interested in all wildlife. So I sort of naturally headed towards ecology and zoology at university. But it wasn't when I went through university, doing ecology and stuff, a lot of it was just bird focus, kakapo, kiwi. There was very little lizard content in my education until the later stages. So it wasn't until I was 25, and I was 25, I was doing wildlife management at Otago Uni, and I encountered a jeweled gecko on Otago Peninsula. And, when I saw this animal, I was like, whoa, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Why has nobody told me about these awesome creatures that live, 20 minutes drive from Dunedin? So, I just became really interested in I get a little bit obsessive about things. So I just that was me, lizards, from then on. And I decided to do a master's project on the jewel gecko. And then I got a few opportunities to help out on doc projects with field work on lizards and that. My first job out at uni was monitoring Grand and Otago skinks with doc. So it just flowed from there. Yeah.
Here's one from Zai. Any specific plants I should add to my hokitika restoration project to help out our lizards?
Yeah. I guess you got to look at what natives are appropriate for your local area. But generally if you just go for that small leafed and dense shrubs and vines. So, Muehlenbeckia vines are great. They smother the rocks. They've got small leaves and they attract lots of insects. So, Muehlenbeckias, coprosmas like Coprosma propinqua, Coprosma rugosa, Matagari. Speargrass is quite a good one, actually, the speargrasses, because, and that's another one. If you've got a cat issue in your garden, get lots of speargrass, because skinks love to bask in speargrass, and it's going to be pretty hard for the cat to grab them in a speargrass, isn't it? It's going to get a face full of spikes. So that could be another option for protecting your skinks from cats.
Zoe asks, which lizard species makes sound?
That's an interesting question. They generally don't make a lot of noise. Some of the geckos kind of do little chirps and that. So if you're hanging around rock tours in Central Otago, you might hear little noises, and it's the Carrero geckos when I had that slide that had the rock geckos on it, that I've called the rock geckos. So those geckos will kind of chirp away in their rock tours. So yeah, you may have heard that.
What's New Zealand's biggest skink? Somebody asks. Tim.
I think it's robust skink. I think it is, but yeah, there's a couple in the North Island that are quite big. They're bigger than the South Island ones, slightly. Yeah, there's one that's got the biggest mass and one that's got the biggest length or something. Yeah.
Riley, just to let you know the kind of inspiration, how you inspire people, he says that he is 11 and he wants to start going to school to educate children like me. He said about lizard conservation, "Thank you for this. You have given me a lot of ideas to take to them, if that's okay with you."
Definitely. No. Yep. I think the more people that know about our lizards and that they're special, and we should be kind of looking out for them, the better.
Alan Blake asks, can you supplement feed lizards? Yeah,
it's not really necessary. Lizards have extremely low food demands, low metabolism and that, and they'll just find what they need in nature, and they may only eat 1 or 2 bugs a week. So I think, you don't really need to feed them, but like wild ones. But if you just provide those right plants and those rock piles and stuff, they will attract invertebrates. So when you're creating your lizard garden or your lizard habitat, you're also creating an invertebrate habitat. So you're planting plants that will attract, moths and flies and all those insects. And your rock piles will have beetles and slaters and things in there. So the lizards just, they should be able to find what they need in nature.
Lily asks, do geckos vocalise for mating purposes, or are there other reasons?
Haven't really heard them vocalising for mating or anything. I have seen geckos mating a few times. And they probably make a bit of noise getting carried away, but yeah.
Well, that's because you've got a torch and you're creeping around in the middle of the night and shining it on them. It's like being caught out, isn't it, with the lizard?
Yeah. They generally they don't make a lot of noise, so they're not like birds that kind of make lots of noise. So they're pretty quiet things.
I was interested when you were talking about going out and exploring for lizards with a torch, and some nights not getting any. Can you just give us a brief sort of, what's a typical night look like for you? Like, when do you go out and when do you come back? And
what's it like? So from Ranfurly, I've been working on that herded TL gecko, and we do the surveys between about November and, November's a bit iffy really, so it's more December to February basically, the warmest part of the year because they're at high altitude, and so we'll have dinner, and then a team might assemble of between sort of 2 and 5 of us, and we'll jump in the 4-wheel drive and we'll drive up onto the mountains, which can be from Ranfurly. It can be a good 1 hour to 2 hours of bumpy as anything 4-wheel driving to get up on the mountains. So you're banging around in the truck for a few hours. You take your tent and all that stuff. In a few places there might be dock huts that you can stay in, but otherwise you're just pitching your tent up there. You might arrive just before dark. So in the summer it's sort of 10:30. When it gets dark, you've got your torches charged up and ready to go. And then you walk around cliffs and bluffs and rock tours and boulder fields, carefully try not to trip over and looking for emergent geckos on the rocks. There's one gecko that's up there which is a lot more abundant, the Southern Alps gecko. So you're seeing quite a few of those. but they're the wrong species. So you're looking for the rare one amongst the common ones. You see a lot of weta and things out at night time, weta and spiders and lots of moths and stuff. So, there's lots of interesting critters out at night time. So even if you're not finding your target species, it's still quite fun. You're still seeing other things. But of course, you always want to get your target.
And you've got to be just silent, don't you? It's just you, and you've got to be quiet all the time. You've
got to concentrate hard because you're trying to spot these things for 3 or 4 hours. And then normally when we spot one, we want to catch it and get some data, and photographs.
Right.
As part of the research. So you got to try and grab it before it drops down a hole in the rocks and disappears forever. So, or at least for that night. So, you sort of spot them and then you got to try and grab them. And then we'll do that. And then sort of 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning when we're kind of too tired to keep going, we'll head back to our tent or the hut and sleep. And the next morning we'll wake up and go and look for skinks.
Fantastic. Emma Wood asks that she saw a skink in her Dunedin garden the other day and it looked pregnant. Would this be right? And what time of the year do they typically give birth?
Yeah, good question. Yes, if it looks quite wide, it's probably a pregnant female, and that'll be a southern grass skink, Oligosoma polychroma, which is the only species in Dunedin City. And they give birth normally between January and, the skinks sort of between January and March usually. Some of the geckos sort of more in the autumn, later in the autumn. So normally they'll use a bit of the warmth of the summer to kind of help develop the embryos, and then they'll, in January or February or March, they'll sort of drop their babies.
Tim asks, are there any species that you really want to work with but haven't managed to yet?
There's always more to do. I'd love to go to Stewart Island and do some more work on harlequin geckos. I was lucky enough to go down there about 10, 11 years ago, and I did 2-week stints down there, and the boat would drop us off down the very bottom of Stewart Island and spend 2 weeks down there looking for these geckos, and there's kiwis and stuff all around, and that was really nice. So I'd love to go back and work on harlequin gecko. There's also, I don't often go up to the North Island, so at some point it'd be nice to work on some more North Island species, maybe on some of the offshore islands up there or something like that. But, you got to go where the work is, and I can't complain. I get to go lots of cool places and work on lots of awesome species. So,
and it's been lovely to have you today. If any questions that people might have that haven't been answered in this webinar, how can they get in contact with you through email or similar?
So, I guess you'll find me on Facebook. I've got a New Zealand Lizards Facebook page, and you can also find me on Instagram and stuff. And sometimes I'm a bit busy with field work and stuff, but I'm normally pretty good at getting back to people, as long as I'm not overloaded with too many messages at once. But I'm normally, very polite and happy to answer people's questions and stuff. So, feel free to get in touch. And that's probably the best way. I'm on all the socials, so you'll find me.
Haley Eleanor says that your Instagram has amazing pictures, so she's obviously a fan.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know Haley, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's great. Look, this has been fantastic, and I think I'm going to put in a little plug here to this. This is the, I'll have to go back a bit. This is the Predator Free New Zealand Trust fantastic lizard poster that's just become available, and it was so popular actually that I think they've already, in a very short time, they've already sold about 500, and they're having a reprint. So they've got the bird poster. They've now got the lizard poster. It'd be a great Christmas present. Bit of a plug here. So if you want to see if it's for you, just go to our go to our website and then just go to the shop, and you'll be able to see it in there and do everything online. Carey, it's been just great to have you. Thank you so much. Good luck with getting back into your favourite parts. So the pre-Christmas, you'll end up somewhere, you think, or will it be after Christmas?
Yeah, I got a local job in Central Otago next week, and then the one after, I'm hoping to go to Fiordland, and we're going to spend sort of doing 2 trips, about 4 days trying to find these Awakopeka skinks, trying to find that second population, the elusive second site for them, and then getting a helicopter to a spot halfway down the west coast of Fiordland, and following up some gecko sightings there. It's a Moko periraku gecko, but we don't know what species, because it's kind of between the range of 2 known species, and there's always a chance it's a new species. So I'm lucky enough to be able to follow up some of these obscure reports that come in from members of the public and stuff. It's always great if the reports come with a photo, which this one did. So, because, people say, oh, I saw this big lizard. It was black and it was 2 foot long and it had green spots and so on. And we're like, oh, okay, what was that? So, yeah, and that can be just a simple cell phone picture, and everyone has a cell phone on them these days. So, yeah, if you see a lizard somewhere and it looks cool, just take a quick cell phone pic. You're not really, if you don't have a permit and stuff, you're not supposed to handle them too much. But, if you can just get a wee photo on your camera and leave them in peace, and then, report those sightings.
So on behalf of the Predator Free New Zealand Trust and everyone who works there, we'll see you next time. Thanks, Carey. Brilliant.
No worries. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.